June 10th, 1963. Small's Paradise, 135th and 7th. A 56-year-old man who spent the last 11 years on a rock in the middle of the ocean walks back into Harlem and takes a seat at table 7, across from the protege who stole his empire. Between them sits a plate of ribs nobody really wants. Around them, a packed room pretends not to stare. Tonight is not dinner. It's a verdict. And everyone in that club is about to find out if one razor stroke is enough to put a king back on his throne. Before that night at Small's Paradise, before the razor and the screaming, Harlem already knows this man, not the tired 56-year-old in a worn gray suit. The name, Bumpy Johnson. For years, he is the king nobody votes for but everybody answers to. The numbers game runs through his hands. Policy banks on half the corners in Harlem, cash houses tucked above barbershops and behind record stores, money moving in and out of apartments where the blinds never fully open. He builds the connections, he builds the roots, he builds the respect. He is the man who can pick up a phone and make a patrol car turn left instead of right. The man who can sit across from an Italian boss and say, "We do business together. You don't own me." Lucky Luciano doesn't hand that kind of freedom to just anybody. He lets Bumpy operate on his own in Harlem, because Bumpy understands one thing. In this neighborhood, numbers and loyalty are worth more than bullets. Bumpy doesn't talk much. He doesn't have to. His rules are simple enough to fit on a matchbook. Pay what you owe. Keep your word. Protect your people. You follow those rules, you eat. You break them, you disappear. Not always in a body bag. Sometimes you just stop mattering. To the hustlers, to the policy writers, to the ladies selling numbers out of beauty salons, he is the man in the background making sure the streets don't spin out of control. He isn't a politician. He isn't a preacher. He is the gravity of Harlem's underworld. You don't always see it, but you feel it every time you try to move. Then 1,952 hits, a conspiracy charge. A federal judge who doesn't know and doesn't care what his name means up on 145th Street. They ship him out to Alcatraz, the rock in the bay where the government sends men it wants the world to forget. 11 years, 11 birthdays, 11 Christmases where his seat at the table is empty and other men start asking, so who runs things now? Harlem keeps breathing. The clubs stay open. The numbers still get written every morning. But without Bumpy, there is no one holding the invisible line between business and chaos. And whenever a throne sits empty long enough, somebody will climb up on it, even if they're standing on another man's foundation. Back in 1947, before anybody called him Smooth, he's just Marcus from 118th Street, young, sharp, hungry, watching the big boys play the numbers game from the sidewalk. Bumpy Johnson notices the way he pays attention, the way he counts money with his eyes, the way he listens more than he talks. Harlem is full of kids who want fast cash. Marcus is different. He wants position. Bumpy brings him in slow. First it's running slips for a policy bank, learning which doors to knock on and which doors to walk past. Then it's counting cash in the back room, memorizing which cops take envelopes and which ones don't. He sits in on meetings with small-time gangsters and big-time Italians and watches Bumpy do something almost nobody else can do, talk tough without raising his voice. Over time, Marcus becomes more than just another worker. He becomes the student. Bumpy shows him how the whole thing fits together. The banks, the cash houses, the routes, the police, the Italians. He lets Marcus see the books. Lets him see where every dollar comes from and where it goes. You don't do that with someone you don't trust. Then 1,952 hits. A conspiracy case. A courtroom where Bumpy's reputation means nothing and a judge who sends him to Alcatraz like he's shipping a package across the country. Before he goes, Bumpy does what any king with no heir has to do. He points at Marcus. Take care of the operation. Take care of the people. Make sure my wife gets hers. Until I'm back. For the first couple of years, it looks like that promise means something. Money goes out to Bumpy's wife on schedule. The numbers still run. The old crew still has work. Marcus handles business, keeps his head down, tells anybody who asks that he's just holding the fort. Then the world starts to shift. The Italians want more control. The streets are changing, and Marcus is sitting in the middle of a river of cash with nobody looking over his shoulder. At first it's small things. He keeps a little extra for himself, skips a visit, sends a lighter envelope 1 month, telling himself he'll make it up next time. This is how betrayal actually works most of the time. It doesn't arrive with a trumpet blast. It creeps in on the sentence, just this once. Just this once, I'll pay myself first. Just this once, I won't mention that new cash house. Just this once, I'll tell the Italians what they want to know so they don't shut me down. In his own head, Marcus isn't the villain. He's the survivor. When the Genovese people sit across from him and ask about Bumpy's policy banks, the cops on the take, the cash locations, he doesn't say, "I'm selling out my mentor." He tells himself a different story. "I'm saving what I can. I'm keeping something alive. If I don't deal, they'll crush everybody. Better I stay in the middle than some stranger." Psychologists have a word for that. Rationalization. Out here on the street, it's simpler. It's the way people sleep at night after they've crossed a line they swore they'd never touch. You change the words in your head so you don't have to change the man in the mirror. Fast forward 11 years. That kid from 118th is gone. In his place is Marcus Smooth Henderson, climbing out of a midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado in a $400 Italian suit. He's got 40 men on his payroll, 5 policy banks working across Harlem, a penthouse in Mount Morris Park with a view of Central Park, and, maybe most important, the blessing of the Genovese family. As long as their envelopes stay fat, twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday, he holds court at Small's Paradise, table 7 in the back. Ribs on the plate, French cognac in the glass, music in the air. For 11 years, while Bumpy Johnson counts days on a rock in the Pacific, Smooth lays his head down at night in clean sheets and tells himself the same bedtime story. "I did what I had to do. I kept things running. If he ever comes home, he'll understand." The truth? He isn't building a new kingdom. He's living inside another man's house, convincing himself the deed has his name on it. When Bumpy Johnson walks out of Alcatraz, he doesn't go home. He doesn't stop at a hotel. He doesn't even change his clothes. 3 days on a train from California to New York. Same gray suit, same scuffed shoes, paper bag with everything he owns. He steps off that train, breathes Harlem air again, and heads straight uptown to 145th Street, to Junie Bird. Junie is in his 60s now, slower on the stairs, gray in his hair, but his loyalty never moves an inch. For 11 years, while Bumpy lives behind concrete and steel, Junie lives out here, watching who eats, who spends, who suddenly starts walking like he owns the block. He doesn't waste time with small talk when Bumpy walks through his door. Names come first. Men who got rich while Bumpy was counting days. Men who took cash houses, policy banks, corners, cops. One name after another, rolling off Junie's tongue like a ledger of debts. Bumpy listens, eyes still and cold. When Junie is done, Bumpy only asks one question. Where does he eat? Junie doesn't have to ask who he is. Small's Paradise, he says. 135th and 7th Avenue, table 7, Friday nights. 9 p.m. on the dot. Bumpy nods once. The game isn't invented tonight. It was set in motion 11 years ago. Tonight is just the move where the king steps back onto the board. Friday comes. June 10th, 1963. Small's Paradise is glowing like a lighthouse in the dark. Neon buzzing over the door, line out on the sidewalk. It's payday. Working men in their best shirts, ladies in dresses that catch the light, jazz pouring out of the front room, smoke curling up under the ceiling fans, laughter rising and falling with the clink of glasses and the slap of dominoes on tabletops. Inside, Waiters weave through crowded aisles balancing plates of fried chicken, ribs, collard greens, cornbread. A three-piece band tunes up in the corner, horns and piano warming the air. To most people in the room, it's just another big Friday night in Harlem's crown jewel. They don't know this is the last night somebody gets to sit at table 7 like he's untouchable. At 8:50 p.m., Bumpy Johnson walks in. Same gray suit from the train, same shoes, no entourage, no flashy entrance. He moves slow, like a man who's been here 1,000 times before and never had to ask permission. A few of the old-timers at the bar choke on their drinks when they see him. One of them rubs his eyes, like the years are playing tricks. "That's Bumpy," somebody whispers. "I thought he was dead." He doesn't look dead. He looks like a ghost that chose to come back. His face is older, lines cut deeper around the mouth, gray in his hair. But the eyes are exactly the same. That cold stillness that makes loud men go quiet. He walks past the band, past the main floor, to the back of the room. Junie Bird is waiting at table 8 with 2 other old soldiers who never switched sides. Bumpy takes the chair with his back against the wall, facing the door. Habit. You don't survive Harlem this long by ever turning your back to an entrance. The clock crawls toward 9. The band slides into a groove. The room gets louder, thicker, like everyone is leaning into the weekend at the same time. But at those 2 tables in the back, at 7 and 8, there's a different kind of electricity humming in the air. At exactly 9 p.m., a midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado pulls up outside Smalls. The door swings open, and Marcus Smooth Henderson steps out like he's walking onto a stage he paid for. Cream-colored suit, rings on his fingers, gold on his wrist, smile already on his face before he hits the door. 4 big men fall in behind him, jackets a little too heavy for the weather, hands never too far from their waistbands. Inside, the crowd parts just enough to let him through. People slap him on the shoulder. Ladies laugh at his jokes. For 11 years, this has been his kingdom. Every Tuesday, every Friday, table 7 in the back, French cognac on the table before he even sits down. Tonight, he doesn't see the change right away. Why would he? Kings don't look for ghosts. He's halfway to table 7 when he finally does. His eyes drift to the side, past the waiters, past the plates, and land on a man in a tired gray suit, sitting at the next table over, staring straight at him. Junie Bird at his side. 2 other familiar faces. All of them quiet, all of them watching. The sound in the room doesn't actually stop, but it might as well. The music keeps playing, but it feels far away now, like it's coming from another building. Smooth's smile dies before it reaches the back of the room. His feet slow down. One of his bodyguards, Leon, sees where he's looking and follows his gaze. When Leon recognizes Bumpy Johnson, his hand slides into his jacket without thinking. Instinct, protection, fear. At the bar, one of the old men lowers his head and murmurs the name like a prayer and a warning at the same time. Bumpy. The younger hustlers don't understand at first. They see a well-dressed man freeze in the middle of the floor, see his bodyguards tense up, see a quiet older man in a cheap suit staring him down from table 8. They feel the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. If you could look down on Small's paradise from the ceiling right now, the whole place would look like a chessboard. 2 tables in the back, 1 path between them, and only 1 man in that room already knows exactly how this game ends, because he's been planning this move for 11 years. Bumpy lets the silence stretch until it's almost painful. Smooth is still standing there, halfway between tables 7 and 8, when Bumpy finally speaks. Marcus, just his name. No shout, no threat. But in a room that suddenly feels like a church, everybody hears it. Smooth swallows, forces a smile back onto his face, and walks the last few steps. "Come sit," Bumpy says, "over here." He doesn't point at table 7. He points at his own table, at his own side of the room. That's the first move. The bodyguards shift in closer, hands deep in jackets. Junie Bird tenses up, but Bumpy doesn't look at the muscle. His eyes stay on Smooth. "Tell your boys to wait over there," he says. This is between you and me. There's a moment where Smooth could refuse. A moment where he could say no, flip the table, start the war everyone in Harlem has been expecting since the day Bumpy got on that train. But refusing means admitting he's scared. And kings don't show fear in front of their people. He waves his hand, trying to look casual. It's all right, he tells his men. Fall back. I'm good. Reluctantly, the bodyguards spread out, step away from the table. They don't go far, but they're not in arm's reach anymore. Second move. No guns on the table, no excuses. A waiter, not sure what else to do, brings over a plate of ribs and sets it down between them. Steam rises off the meat. The smell mixes with cigarette smoke and cologne and sweat. There are maybe 250 people in that room now, and every single one of them is pretending to drink, pretending to eat, but really they're watching these two men in the back. Sit, Bumpy says. Smooth sits. His hands aren't shaking yet, but his fork scrapes the plate when he picks it up. Eat. Smooth forces a laugh. Man, I'm not hungry like that. Bumpy doesn't laugh. Eat, he says again. You don't know which meal is your last. Right there, the music dies. The band doesn't get a signal, they just know. Conversations cut off in the middle of sentences. A woman at the next table covers her mouth with her hand. Somewhere in the room, a chair leg scrapes the floor and makes everybody jump. Bumpy leans back, calm like he has all night. He starts talking, not loud, but clear. 11 years, he says. I go away. Before I leave, I put a kid from 118th Street in position. Smart kid. Sharp. I tell him, keep the policy banks running. Keep the cash houses safe. Take care of my people. Make sure my wife gets her envelope every week. He looks at Smooth. For a little while, you did that. Then the money got short. Then the letters stopped. Smooth licks his lips. Bump, man, listen. It wasn't like that. I had to survive. You know how it was out here. Italians pushing in, cops turning on us, everybody hungry. I did what I had to do to keep the whole thing from falling apart. That sentence right there, I had to survive, is the anthem of every traitor that's ever walked a Harlem sidewalk. When people betray you, they almost never say, I chose me over you. They write themselves a prettier script. They call it survival, protecting the business, saving the family. It's not that the danger wasn't real, it's that the story they tell themselves lets them sleep at night. I had to survive, Bumpy repeats. You survived. Nice. 5 policy banks, 40 men on your payroll, new Cadillac, penthouse with a view of Central Park. You survived real good, Smooth. His voice never rises. He just starts listing, each word another brick on Smooth's chest. You told the Italians where my cash houses were. You took the cops I paid and made them yours. You took corners I bled for and signed them over to the Genovese. 11 years. You had every chance to make it right on your own. You didn't send a dime. You didn't send a letter. You waited until I walked back into this city to talk about saving anything. Smooth's fork is still in his hand, but the food on his plate is untouched. Sweat is running down the side of his face now. Bump, I can fix it, he says. I'll give it all back. The banks, the houses, the streets. You can have it all. Just let me walk. I swear to God, I was only trying to keep things together. That's how rationalization works. When the gun, or what you think is a gun, is pointed your way, suddenly everything becomes a noble sacrifice. I only did it to protect us. I only did it to live. Behind all of that, there's a simpler truth. You chose yourself, and you hoped nobody important would ever come home to check the books. Bumpy studies him for a long moment. Then his hand moves, but not the way anybody in that room expects. For 11 years, every hustler in Harlem has heard stories about Bumpy's razor. Long before Dutch Schultz, long before Alcatraz, back in the 1,930 seconds, that thin strip of steel was as famous on these streets as any pistol. He carried it folded in his pocket, close to his palm. Most men had forgotten about it. Smooth hadn't. He just chose not to remember. Now, in the dead silence of Small's paradise, Bumpy slides his hand inside his jacket. A few people scream. The bandleader ducks behind his piano. Half the room dives under tables. You can hear metal clicking all over the club as guns clear leather on both sides. But Bumpy doesn't pull a gun. He lays a small, shining razor on the white tablecloth. Opens it with a soft, clean snap. The kind of sound that cuts through a crowd better than any shout. "Stand up," he tells Smooth. Smooth's legs barely work, but he gets to his feet. He's sweating, breathing hard, eyes flicking from the razor to Bumpy's face to the door and back. "You've been eating off my name for 11 years, Bumpy says. "Tonight, you pay a little of that back." He steps in close. Too close for a gun to matter. That's the point. You can't shoot your way out of something that's already in your face. Smooth flinches, but Bumpy's hand is steady. One quick motion. A thin line of red opens on Smooth's cheek from the corner of his mouth towards his ear. It's shallow, not meant to kill. Meant to last. Gasps ripple through the room like a wave. Bumpy wipes the razor on the napkin, folds it, and puts it away like he's closing a book. "You got 24 hours, he says quietly, but everyone hears him. "By this time tomorrow, you're gone. Out of Harlem. You ever show your face north of 110th Street again, you don't walk back out. No shots. No body on the floor. Just a man clutching his face, blood on his fingers, staring at the people who used to toast his name and now can't meet his eyes. That's the thing about death, it ends a story. A bullet drops you once. A scar like that? It tells the story over and over, every morning in the mirror, every time a stranger asks, 'What happened to your face?' And from Bumpy's side of the table, this isn't just punishment. It's strategy. He picks the busiest club in Harlem so 250 witnesses can carry the tale. He takes the guns out of the room by making it a matter of pride, man to man. He chooses the razor instead of the pistol because a corpse only scares people today. A marked traitor scares people for years. Tonight, he doesn't just remove a problem. He signs his name back across the whole neighborhood without firing a single shot. By the time Smooth stumbles out of Small's paradise that night, the story is already bigger than him. Within 24 hours, every hustler, bartender, and cab driver in Harlem knows what happened at Table 7. They know the razor came out. They know the king didn't kill the traitor. He marked him, gave him a day to disappear. Within 72 hours, 3 men who'd carved up Bumpy's old territory quietly pack their families, their cash, and vanish south or across the river. No goodbyes, no farewell parties, just empty bar stools where their people used to sit. The Italians test him. The Genovese send crews up past 110th Street, trying to show Harlem nothing has changed. They lose 3 men before the week is over. Not in a public massacre, not in a headline, just gone. Word gets back to the bosses downtown, and suddenly they're sending a man in a silk tie to sit across from Bumpy, not a hit squad. They talk. Lines are redrawn. Within a few months, the word on the street is simple. North of 110th, that's Bumpy's kingdom again. And by the 6-month mark, the same network of policy banks, cash houses, and corners that once carried his name does it again. No full-scale war, no citywide bloodbath. Just fear, respect, and very careful calculations. So what does that make him? In the living rooms of Harlem, especially in black families who remember the 50s and 60s, some people still call Bumpy a protector. The man who made sure certain wolves stayed on their side of the fence. The one you could go to when the police didn't care, when the landlord wouldn't listen, when the world outside treated your whole neighborhood as disposable. But if you pull him out of the dim light of Small's paradise and drop him under the bright lights of a courtroom, the picture shifts. Extortion, violence, drugs and numbers money flowing through poor hands and back into his pockets. He's not a folk hero there. He's organized crime. Years before that night at Table 7, there's a small cafe on Lenox Avenue, 2nd floor, smoke thick in the air. 2 kinds of power sit across from each other at a wobbly wooden table. Bumpy Johnson, King of the street, Malcolm X, voice of a movement. One carries a razor, the other carries a microphone. They don't walk the same path, but they recognize something in each other. Influence, responsibility, the weight of an entire neighborhood on their shoulders. That's the thing about places the system forgets. Somebody always steps in to play king. Sometimes it's a preacher with a sermon. Sometimes it's a hustler with soldiers. Sometimes, like in Harlem, it's both at once. One trying to lift people out of the game. One making sure the game doesn't eat them alive. So was Harlem better with Bumpy, or worse? Was he a shield, or just another blade pointed at his own people? There isn't a clean answer. That gray area, the space between hero and villain, protector and predator, is exactly why his name still echoes whenever people talk about what real power looks like on a forgotten street. Years later, Marcus Smooth Henderson wakes up in a city where nobody knows his name. No Small's Paradise, no Table 7, no Harlem night crowd watching him walk in. Just a small bathroom, bad light, and a mirror that doesn't lie. He leans in to wash his face, and there it is, the thin white line running down his cheek, a souvenir from one night in 1963 that never really ends. He can change his suit, change his car, change his address. He can tell people he moved for business. But every morning, that scar asks him the same question: who did you sell out to survive? For the street, that's the genius and the cruelty of what Bumpy Johnson does. He doesn't put Smooth in the ground. He puts a verdict on his face and lets him carry it until the day he dies. No appeal, no parole. Just a walking reminder of what happens when you break the king's law. So, is that justice, or is it just a more elegant form of punishment? Is a lifetime of shame more fair than one moment of violence? In the Code of Harlem, a lot of people will tell you Bumpy gave him mercy. In any other world, it looks like a life sentence without a judge. But here's the thing about Bumpy Johnson, the man they call the Godfather of Harlem. He never builds his reputation on threats. He builds it on promises. If he says he'll protect you, he does. If he says you've got 24 hours to disappear, you do. Now I want to hear from you. If you're sitting in Bumpy's chair that night, what do? Do you kill the traitor, forgive him, or mark him for life? Drop your answer in the comments and share this with somebody who still thinks betrayal is just business.